Good evening. This is the Town of Raleigh Finance Committee meeting of June 12th, 2018. It is 7:17. Call the meeting to order. And first items on the list are some budget transfers. First one is the town account transfer funds from the assistant town accountant wages to accounting department expenses. And the transfer amount is $500, requested by Sue Bailey.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I'll
Sharon.
second that.
Is there any further discussion on the transfer? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
12. Okay, second transfer is amount of $210. Building inspector to transfer funds from the inspection department expenses to inspection department salaries. And just a error in the first week of their calculations.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion on the $210 transfer? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Are you talking about Didax tonight?
Tomorrow night.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, they just said that.
Yeah.
Last item is a request from the town administrator to transfer funds from litigation to Parks and Recreation Committee field expenses.
How much was that one, Larry? Which sheet?
2,000.
Yes, it's that.
There it is. And see, that one hasn't been signed by the selectmen or anything, right?
No,
Okay.
this came in from the vice chairman of the Parks and Rec and considered kind of an urgent matter because
Right.
they have to water these fields. It's an irrigation well, like on a regular basis.
Right.
Or there's like permanent damage, I guess. So he's looking to get the pump, motor in the pump
We need a new
isn't
pump.
working. They have to get into the well, get the pump and motor out, and then some other connections and replace the whole thing.
Is that
Right.
the construction of the fire station?
No, it's
Is that what
separate.
the pump is?
No,
This is the irrigation pump. for the-
Where is it located?
It's located right behind the police station, right near the snack shack. The pump's burnt out, So they can't water the fields, and the fields are beginning to really dry out. We've been dry, we had some rain last week, but otherwise it's, until this gets fixed, we can't, not able to water the field.
Okay. They have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second, Sharon. Any other discussion on it? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, next on the schedule, review and discuss the special town meeting warrant articles. Okay. Article 1 is just the standard suspending the section 19 and 20. And that's a no funding item, so we don't have to do anything on it. Article 2 is the new school budget. I think we've all had a chance to review it. This is the scenario 1. Before I open it up for discussion, do I have a motion to recommend it?
What
I'll
we
recommend-
recommend after
I
we discuss it?
What?
I'm gonna
Yeah.
abstain
Normally-
because it involves fire department wages.
Okay.
Because I do have a comment or question
Yeah, well,
on one thing.
we might as well open it up for discussion now rather than trying to get a motion for approval or not approval. So if anybody wants to lead off the discussion?
I have just, but since Dave Peterson is here, I have a question for him. On the tree department expenses, Dave, they're going from 20,000 to 15,000. I went through with my wife today from center of town on Weathersfield Street all the way to the country club, and then I went up and down 133, and I noticed so many dead trees. I mean, and it wasn't like one here, one there. In some cases, there's 4 and 5, and like the bark is falling off. My question is this the money that's supposed to be used to take a lot of these trees down?
What we did was, it's due to the gypsy moth infestation the last couple of years, the droughts, as well as a lot of the roads, trees along the roads, the salt tends to kill them. We appropriated a separate article for $50,000 to be used for the trees. The tree department, the tree warden also increased his budget by, was it 20,000?
From 8,000.
From 8 to also start work. In other words, from now on, we need to put more money in that we've really, other than real emergencies, we've ignored trimming trees. The only ones that trim trees are the light department.
Yeah.
So I've met with the light department, Dan Folding, and we're hoping to coordinate with them, particularly in terms of hiring police officers, because some of those, they're gonna require some police details, and they'll eat up the money real quick. So we're trying to coordinate, once we get this all taken care of, the town meetings, we'll coordinate with them so that we can work together. And it'll start the trees, it's not gonna get them all, 50,000, believe me. If anybody's got a
Right.
tree cut in their yard,
I
they know
think
how
it's a
expensive it
serious
is.
problem because, you know, a lot of
Oh,
the
it-
bark is
it's-
gone. I mean, limbs
No,
will
they're
fall
waiting to
off.
fall. It's a
Power
matter
lines,
of, if we don't do something, somebody's gonna
liability.
get one to the windshield or whatever. So that's why we put in for 50,000. It's not gonna be enough,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we're gonna look probably for another 50,000 next year. But this will give us a good start, and we'll get a good handle on what it is gonna cost and how far that money goes. And we're just doing sheer guesswork this year.
Yeah, it just seems worse than ever. I've
Yeah,
never
no, it
seen
is.
so many
It's
dead trees.
Started last year, became real evident, and if we had a fall town meeting, we were going to look for $50,000 at the
Yeah.
fall town meeting. When we didn't have that, we had to wait till the spring meeting.
My concern is just the liability.
No, they're
of
up
the
and
town.
down. It's Havel Street's real bad. There's sections of Dodge Road, Daniels, Weathersfield,
Weathersfield is bad.
Leslie Road, Newbury Road.
Yeah.
They're all, and they're in clumps. Most of the time, it's not
Yeah.
just one tree. And they're all 100-foot, 80 or 100-foot trees. They're
Yeah.
not the small trees. They're the big. Most of them are big oaks.
Yeah.
They just got. They've had 2 or 3 years of infestations now from the gypsy worms, and they suck all the juice out of the leaves, and the trees can't make it. And you add the drought in, and like I say, salt and stuff. There's a lot of other factors that come into play, and the trees are just dying.
So this cut here from 20 to 15,000 does not affect the removal of those trees?
No, it's not going to be
That's
enough to
another
make
thing.
any big deal. He's just trying to, what he'd like to do is get the budget back up to a point where every year he can actually plan on cutting some trees. Where up until now, every year, if it's an emergency, we cut it, otherwise he doesn't really have the money. So it's
Okay.
really kind of taken, and this is a planning year, and we already got the 50,000, so
Okay.
we can take 5 out of there and not get hurt, hopefully.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, it was $9,044 was the FY18 expense. So we've been budgeting it for less than 10,000, so in the FY19 budget, we brought it up to 20,000.
And then down to
But
15,
because we're making adjustments now to accommodate
the school.
this new assessment from the school, we're taking it from 20 to 15, we're still ahead.
You're still ahead, okay.
And the other thing is, it's the tree department has to hire a company to come in. I mean, they use the highway workers to cut brush, and when trees come down, they go out and cut them up. But to actually cut those big trees, you got to bring.
Oh, yeah,
We'll be bringing some
professionals.
cranes in and everything else. So it's going to be an expensive and,
Yeah.
and time-consuming job.
The highway surveyors already got the specs
Yeah.
in operation. I've been working with them on that. So that should be going out shortly, I think.
Okay,
So that by July, we should be doing something with the trees out there.
okay.
It's a real problem. It's a public safety issue.
Yeah, like I said, I'm concerned about liability to the town if, one collapses and.
Yeah, no,
somebody
it's,
gets
I'm
hit.
just afraid.
Right
and
on the edge of the road.
we started looking at this last year, and we said
Yeah.
that that somebody goes through somebody's windshield, somebody's going to get killed or seriously injured, or pedestrians or people on bicycles, or it's just you get any kind of a windstorm, and it was
Yeah.
snow. We were fortunate this year that we didn't lose any in that heavy snow we had. Most of those were live trees that come down in that snowstorm. But no, it's a real problem, and
Yeah,
I
okay.
know
we need
it's
to
a
deal
lot
with it.
Widowmakers, as they call them.
Yeah.
Hanging in the trees.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you gotta
Yes.
take care of first.
Yeah.
Because those are the ones that are already broken, they're ready to come down.
Yeah,
So there's a lot on Havel Street.
Could you use any community preservation money for
No.
something like that?
No.
No.
Public Works function.
Public works
Because-
function, so.
Mike can make the argument these trees are old and
No.
buildings are old and you wanna.
Nice try, Peter.
good try, Peter.
Taking them down is not preserving.
No, preserving, I mean, not knocking them down, no.
We use that to preserve the big one in the cemetery,
Yeah,
there,
they
the big
did.
beech tree there.
They
We-
did.
Yeah,
a
that
few
was
years
a
back,
special
we
tree.
put some money into that.
That was the only comment I had on that, otherwise I'm fine with it.
My only comment is just, I hate to see, I mean, I know we have to do it, but that OBEB money, 25,000, when you see that who is it that recommended 680 some odd thousand that should be put in there, and I know that that's a number that every town has to deal with, but we're reducing that, and the 50,000 out of stabilization. I hate to see that come out of there.
Well, we've built up the stabilization. When I was first a selectman in the early 90s, we had 25 or 50,000 in stabilization, and we've built it up gradually over that time. And up until, I think, around 2010 or 2012, we used every bit of free cash every year to fund the budget. So we've really come a long way in terms of having stabilization funds available now, trying to build up the free cash so we have the availability to use that. And the budgeting process has just gotten a lot better, and we're tight. We're still tight, but it's one of those things that we got to fund the school budget, and
It seems like we're punished though, because we do try to be good financial, we
Yeah.
have a couple of $1 million, that's for the town, for things that we need to do. And here we are, expending it for operating costs for the school.
Well, a good
So-
example would be if we didn't have free cash to used the 50,000 for the trees, we would have, I would have anyway, been looking to take it out of stabilization. Because stabilization is for emergencies and capital projects that, you know, are unexpected but fortunately the last couple of years we've had a fair amount of free cash. The economy's been good. But next year or the year after, the free cash could be right down to next to nothing. So that's, I think the last, I don't have my figures with me, but I think the last 5 years we've put a lot of free cash into the school budget every single year. And when you do that, you're behind the 8 ball for the next year. And like we were talking earlier, we're already anticipating that next year's school budget's gonna come in probably at, I'm guessing, another $2 million over and above what they're getting this year because of pay raises and insurance costs and retiree costs and stuff like that. So it's, we need to have free cash available to, or whatever, budget cuts, further budget cuts to spend that.
We have no idea what the operating costs are gonna be for the fire and police station as well.
No, they're gonna
They're
be,
big buildings, and we
there's
have
gonna
no
be
idea.
some increase there, I'm sure. So, yeah, next year's gonna be another, could be a tougher budget year than this year, actually. And once again, depending on how much free cash, we're gonna carry over some free cash, but, you know, we'll have to wait and see. There's no way, all we would, you know, somebody suggested that we should have a 5-year plan for budgeting. Well, we never know from year to year what the school budget's gonna be, what the free cash is gonna be, how much state aid we're gonna get. These are all unknowns that we don't find out until you're into March before you really know what all these figures are, so.
We can forecast ours, but the problem is that the school budget, we get a number, a preliminary number in February, that skews everything. So no matter what we can kind of forecast from our side, you know, we get handed basically a bill. And I have to figure out where that bill, which is almost 60%, you know, when you add in 2 other regional schools, plays into it. If you were in a single school municipal district, this wouldn't be happening. In this case, regionalization takes away that process of an integrated budgeting process with the school department because they're not part of the municipality. So we can do our forecasting, but when 60% goes and it's unknown until February, it's really hard to do a 5-year plan because the biggest expense is handed to you and the numbers have just gone up to what we never would have expected for an increase.
And that always comes in when all the other departments are submitting their budgets to us for review.
Well, everything
and
is
it's just-
preliminary because
yeah.
I don't know what's gonna happen, and then that number can change, as we've seen.
And it does.
That's why you have to start somewhere, and I think the teachers' contracts, I mean, they have to know that if they're getting the steps and the 2.5, they can't, it's not possible. We have to start maybe at 1.5 or something for cost of living with the steps, and they have to hold to that, you know, we have to
Well,
be
they're not gonna.
proactive. Well, that's what you have to, you know, I mean, because you can't be having, I mean, this time we were able to take care of it, but next year or the year after, I mean, it could get out of control, and
Well, it already is out of
It's
control.
It's out of
well,
control.
I mean, out of
And,
control that we can't,
Out of
you know,
money. Out
pay.
of money.
And we're not really taking
Um,
care of it, we're cutting our other budgets.
Well, we're lucky because we have the stabilization, we have the free cash. I mean, I've been on the finance committee for, 10 years, and I've seen tough times, and this wasn't one of them for us.
I
You know,
feel
from-
it is, I
well,
feel it's
okay, well,
really
then you
tough.
don't remember what happened in the early
Oh, I
2000s
know that,
and
but
in
I also
2006 when
know,
when we had $100,000 and, you know, and
yeah,
and
we're gonna be lucky if
stabilization
we
and
get
stuff.
anyone to town meeting, because the people in town are out there saying, why bother, our votes don't matter.
well, that's some of them, and some of them are saying that they wanna see that they don't wanna see, cuts and layoffs of teachers too. That's why you gotta put the metal to the fire and tell, Brian Forget that, because
You
the
think they
problem
haven't been
is.
telling him?
We've been up
Well,
there,
We've been telling
But
him
I
over
think-
and over and over again, and he doesn't
well,
listen.
No, but I think next year it might not be, we might not be so lucky, that's why I'm saying that we have to put it up front. I mean, they have the
Peter,
teacher's
that's what we do
contract,
every
but
single
every
year.
time, but we never really get involved with the teacher's contracts.
not allowed to, we're not.
We can't.
I know we
We
can't,
can't.
but we have to be able to put that up front and let them know as a
They know
board. So
that.
all the
They know
towns,
that.
all the towns have to get together and
Peter,
say.
we've done it many
Well,
times, we
I
were
know
up,
it
Larry
doesn't-
and I and Joe Perry, and you were there at some,
It
we
doesn't-
started in September.
But not all the towns that are together on this, that's what
Yeah,
I'm
no,
saying.
no.
you know,
Even
I
if they
mean,
were together,
And,
two of the three towns
right, but,
voted a limited budget. Two of the three towns voted against an override. And the school committee still came up with a budget that basically was above.
and I've had conversations with the chairperson and I said, because you're making the kids, I mean, the problem is, if teachers are gonna get the contracts and all that, and then they have to make cuts, who do you think it suffers? The kids. Because that they have this cost up here, and they can't, cut the teachers' pay, because they already got the contract signed, so then they have to start eliminating teachers and programs and stuff, and that's not the solution.
Well,
And,
But
Well-
we're laying off.
And the
firefighters
solution
and
is
policemen.
that you have to hold the school to say, this is what you can, if you don't do this, then, you're gonna have to suffer the consequences. I mean,
What are the
that's,
consequences?
Well, the
the consequences are that,
the
that they might
consequences are
actually
that
have
we're
to.
paying.
They dictate
Well,
to us, I mean, we have no control over
I
that.
don't think we've been forceful enough, all
Oh, I
the
think-
towns together,
Oh, I think we have.
about
I
making
mean,
the point,
the
you
no
know,
votes
from,
were enough to send the
I mean, it was a big no vote.
a big no, okay, well, the problem is, the teachers already got their money and everything else, and when you start talking about cuts, you're talking about, programs in the school and stuff like
And
that,
we're talking
so-
about programs in the town,
I
too.
know that, but I'm
And
saying
it's a
is
shame to
that
say that we're having the town
it's-
against the school,
Yeah, that's really what it's.
but
Yeah,
that's what
but
it's turning out to be.
That's what it is.
And then they use a scare
And-
tactic that they're gonna lose 21 teachers, and they didn't do that,
Well,
even with their
They-
cuts.
even
Yeah,
with
so
the cuts, whatever they
Rubs
cut,
people the wrong way too.
they cut 5% of the teachers in
They
the
didn't
school.
have
They-
any teachers.
They
No.
cut 5% of the
The
staffing and
yes.
whatever, the whole staffing, that's a sizable cut.
Well, everybody's had to make cuts, and we're here now at this point to say, how are we gonna fund this budget? That's
Well, I
all.
think we have to.
Salisbury, I think, has even got a bigger problem than we do, so at least we have available funds, but we need to do it. My recommendation, we need to, let's,
There's no
the selectmen came up with a way to fund this,
Person next to me
let's
is
fund it.
drowning as well.
And we're gonna go in next year fighting like we did the last 2 or 3, we've been up there every single year.
If I didn't know that the state would be stepping in and determining the trite budget, my feeling was it should go back to the voters for another vote to override to fund this new budget. But knowing that even if it went down and it went to the state, we may end up losing because they may give them more money than
Yeah, I mean,
we can
Yeah,
afford.
but
if it all gets turned down, you're talking about a 1/12 budget, but the Commissioner of Education determines what the figure will be for the 1/12 budget. So, do you think the Commissioner of Education is gonna say, well, now, forget the schools, hire your 2 firemen, or hire your extra police officer? No, they're gonna look at what the school budget, what the school
but it just
superintendent
takes-
says we need, and that's what they're gonna fund.
It just takes away from the public that voted that. You know,
Right, I mean,
It takes them out of the picture.
At
That's all.
what point does the school committee acknowledge the voters in this democracy when they say, no, we don't want the override? The school committee, some of the members, okay, and parents wanted the override, sent it to the voters, okay, let them decide what they wanted.
But the problem
Okay.
I think, is that both sides were posturing in this instance because there was actually more money.
We're not we
Well,
weren't
the other-
posturing.
because
We
if the
told
other-
them,
I know, but
we can
didn't-
afford
but
this plus
What
two
you
hundred
could afford
thousand.
really wasn't exactly what you could really afford. That's the problem, and I think that, I mean, I just have a problem with that. I don't like the idea that the teacher, because I've been saying every year to Brian, okay, I mentioned about the health insurance 2 years ago, that they should probably join GIC because GIC is cheaper because of economies of scale with the Commonwealth. I know because I'm on GIC. And then I've been telling Brian about the contracts, and I think that I think there has to be something so that everybody knows that that the teachers, that the parents, everybody has to know that that we have to hold that the teachers' contracts which make up 80% of the cost of the operating costs, they have to be held to a certain amount. And if not, then there could be problems down the way. I don't know if the three towns have acted together on this.
We have, I'm telling you right now, we have.
know?
We have no control over the bargaining, how they bargain with it. We told Brian a long time ago, you know, we're all the three towns are hurting. Salisbury's hurting with new projects, we're hurting with the police and fire. And that we put the stadium override on, and we talked to him before the
But it
budget,
hasn't
before the
resonated.
budgeting started,
It
that
hasn't resonated.
please come in with a decent contract. I mean, we understand there are certain fixed costs, just like the town has certain
But
fixed
I
costs.
have a feeling it's gonna resonate with them more because of what happened. I
Oh,
think
maybe,
more
we'll see.
local, because now you have someone else that's a new chairperson on the school committee too, Marissa. I think that things are gonna, you
Peter,
know,
every time I've gone up there to
Change.
every single meeting, I think every single meeting from September on, almost every one of those, I've gotten up, often Larry's gotten up, and even Bernie's here, Bernie gets up, and there's 9 members of the school committee, and when we talk for our 3 minutes that we're allowed, or whatever, they look at us, they don't even look at us, they just sit there, we make our spiel, we sit down, and they go on to the next thing. There's no...
They do what they wanna do.
There's no recognition,
regardless.
that they have not given us any recognition that we have a budgeting issue. Their attitude is that we have to fund whatever they want to fund. And we're under the Proposition 2.5 issue. The school committee, this is the second or third year, they've given us between a 5 and a 6% increase in the assessment. And I understand that, you know, their budget may only be going up 2%, but the way the funding thing works, our assessments are going up between 5 and 6%. We're only allowed a 2.5% increase. So, I mean, we're behind the 8 ball before we start.
but I think there's still more people are getting a little bit involved now. and
Well,
stuff, So I think.
No, I mean,
that,
you're hoping for something that isn't materializing.
No.
well,
I think the bottom line,
I'm
though,
gonna be
is
optimistic that I think there's gonna be changes going forward, there'll be more
Well,
recognition, because I talked to Brian.
Hope you're
Brian
right.
realizes
I don't
that,
think so.
you know, they have to, so if they don't follow suit, then,
Then
you
what?
know,
Then what?
Why did they come up with a budget that was still
Yep.
above?
I think they were,
What?
I think they were surprised, because they cost, they didn't think they were. was
I don't
gonna
care
go
whether
down.
they were
Plan B.
surprised or not.
Yeah, Plan B, we
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah,
even go by the
I know
Plan
well.
B. It was
Yeah.
100,000 more that we had to come up with.
And there's no budget discussion, that they don't look at the item and say, oh, well, why don't we, combine, these grades? Why don't we send some of the kids, I don't think they can, from Newberry over to Salisbury or stuff like that. There's no budget discussion. It was Plan B, here it is, cut and dry, we listened to everybody, boom, here's the paper.
what is the total Triton budget for the coming year, Dave?
If you look at,
How much? 43.
if you look at their budget,
Okay.
they start off with what they had this year, or last year, and their whole budgeting process is, what do we need to add to that figure? They need to go back and start from almost a zero-based budgeting and say, what do we need to do in the very basics of the budget to make changes to account for increased costs somewhere else? If in the town, we have if we wanted to give the employees a 4% raise, well, we have to go and take money away from maintenance and some other departments. We just can't do it. They just look at it and, they hand out the raise. The raises, the bargaining up there is always very friendly, because the committee, I guess, and the administration basically gives the teachers more or less whatever they want. And you look at the perks up there they have in their contract. I mean, I believe that, as an example, retiree dental. I mean, I'm retired from the state. I have a retiree dental plan. I pay 100%. Up at Triton, the school with the towns are paying 70%, which is, I looked in the budget, we're paying about $120,000 a year towards retiree dental plan. Well, our employees don't have a dental plan for regular employees, let alone retirees. And we're subsidizing theirs. That's $100,000, but that's where they got to start looking at. They've been giving out all these different perks, and we just can't fund it anymore. I mean, if they come up with a $750,000 increase next year just for salaries, That's more than we can afford before we even start the budgeting process.
So-
Because we give them around 200 and give or take 200,000 over and above. Well, if you divided that up 3 ways, $750,000, that's up close to $300,000 each time. We're already 100,000 behind before we even look at actual numbers.
So it seems to me as though the timing of their budget puts us behind the 8 ball right to begin with.
Yep.
So that we don't, they have more information on what the town's can afford than we have about what it is that they're looking for. Seems to me as though there's no mechanism at the moment for essentially inserting one or two representatives of each town into the process at the appropriate time, which is essentially in the fall. As soon as they know what their census is, they should be able to tell how much money they're going to have. I mean, the state is plus and minus. The state is a variable, but the primary variable is what the census is. And at the moment, that census has a fair amount of variability in 2 counts. One is just pure student head count, because I guess the St. John's Prep, for example, has opened up a middle school, and if you look at the numbers over the years, the biggest drop-off of students comes at that middle school point. That's where a lot of people disappear. That point and at grade 8 as well, 8 going into 9, but people go off to private schools. So as soon as the census is known, they have a kind of an estimate of what the state is going to put on the table for them, plus or minus. That's A. Then B, there's an issue of what the special ed situation would be. And that is a really unknown, in fairness to the school system. There can be big swings with very small number of cases. And that's the reality of that situation. But they'll know that in September. And so there's no reason, I can see no reason why a budget discussion should not start at that point in time. And at that point in time, I think to Peter's point, it does make sense for the towns to be straightforward with where they are as well. So that's
We have been, Bernie. Every year we go up in September and we tell them what we have.
Well, but
I've done it the last 4 years I've been
Well,
the selectman.
Yeah, but
We've gone up
that's-
there in September and told them what we had.
But they now factor into their way of looking at the budget, their view of what our free cash
I
situation
realize
is.
you're playing poker and we're playing poker on them too. I mean, that's the problem.
What's
I
a
mean,
poker?
I don't think
No.
that's a
Yeah, but
misrepresentation
I'm just
of
saying, but
We
they're
don't know how much
rolling
free
on the
cash we're gonna
cards.
get. Our free
Well-
cash gets certified in the spring. Last couple of years, it's been overly large because of the economy's been really good. And thank God it's been large because we've needed it to fund the schools. But I mean, there are all kinds of variables, but I mean, the bottom line is, they don't have to follow 2.5, and they don't.
I think one
Particularly
of
for
the
the
big
assessments for the
problems.
town.
Especially when they knew they had $1 million problem early in the budget season. They never took that into consideration when they were
Well, that's
looking
because
at their
if they had
budget.
the contracts on the less money, that would have helped that, but they have, they gave 2.75 this past year. That was what they got for
But that's
this
their
last,
job,
you
that
know.
they know
But
that.
it's
And,
But there are other factors as well. So you have to look at the contracts for the instructional assistants as well. They had a significant increase, way more than the teachers did. There was an argument that made them competitive. Well, that may be a topic to be discussed rather than presented as a fait accompli, and then we're struggling with the consequences of that. So their staffing levels for instructional assistants, for example, is 50% higher than Pentucket. Pentucket has 66, and Triton has over 100. That's a 50% increase over a
a system that is a comparable size and of comparable other demographics. So, but those are the discussions which need to be taken place, but not in my mind, not in February and not in March. It's too late. So I think there's a lot to be said for leveraging whatever, using whatever leverage we have to institute a process by which the towns get to sit down with the school committee, not in this kind of, the school committee controls it like the current communication process, which it provides no, there's actually no work that's done in that. I mean, I've been at those sessions, you get 3 minutes, you don't have any data, you're trying to digest the information that you've got right then and there. That's not a way to hold a budgetary discussion. The way to hold a budgetary discussion is to have the information beforehand, have people who can kind of scrub through that information and have questions that they're going to ask, and have an expectation that the people who are making the proposal for the budget can answer them. I mean, that's what you guys do for the water department.
Exactly.
And if the water
every other
department does not know, it's extraordinarily and embarrassingly embarrassing when people aren't prepared to answer basic questions about why we're spending 50,000 more on chemicals this year than last year. The supervisors in the department need to know that, and the same with the schools. And that kind of process we need to be pushing for that kind of process, and being basically treated as equals. We're paying the bill, for heaven's sake, and that should give us some rights to have a more constructive discussion in a more timely fashion. So,
I don't think we'd even have this problem if we were getting adequate funding from the state. I think when we completely regionalized in the 90s, wasn't the state kicking in 35% of our school budget?
Part of the problem is,
And now it's 22%.
Bernie put together the numbers, that if you go back to 2000, we've lost almost 900 students.
Right.
Well, the state, if you look at the state budget right now, they're gonna increase the school budget. Each school is gonna get increased by, they're saying, $30 per student. So if we're down, we're gonna get, that automatically means we're gonna get less money than last year. And I don't know what the numbers will be. Last year and this year, it was pretty much the same, it was level, more or less level. But, you know, they go by numbers, and the state formula is everybody agrees is horrible.
Yeah, because I think when we
But the problem
totally...
is unless they put a lot of money into it, if they change the state formulas around for Triton to get more money, they gotta take money away from Somerville or Cambridge or Weston or somebody else. So, you know, what they need is an influx of an extra 300 or 400 million, and then divide that up in a more even basis. But right now, the way it's been the last few years is when the state gets a hold of the budget, all they're doing, if they wanna change more for Triton or regional schools, they're taken away from inner city schools, or, you know, some schools out west. Or the school systems are fighting with each other over funding, not just the 2.5, the Prop 2.5. And like I said, I go back to us, is I don't know how you can do it, but the school assessment, when the school assessment goes up for us 5 or 6%, it's a killer, because it means we have to take money out of either other budgets or hopefully have free cash or whatever in order to make up that difference. And
When the state, though, was encouraging small towns like Rowley to regionalize in the 90s, we had a regional high school and middle school, but our elementary schools were not. When we fully regionalized, I think they were kicking in around 35%.
Yeah,
And now it's 22%
yeah,
roughly.
they've gone down over
So-
time, and they don't properly fund.
If you
One of
make
the
up
biggest
that-
issues is special ed. In other words, you know, we're spending $200,000 to $300,000 on some of these special ed kids. And, you know, and that's part of the problem, is a family moves into town, and one of the 3 towns with a child with severe special needs that needs to be educated, we have to pay that. Well, you know, my theory, and I said it at a couple of meetings up there, was, well, if you special ed, we should pay, and I'm just picking a number out of the air, but if we pay double, if we pay $10,000 a year to educate a regular student, we should be responsible for $20,000 for a special ed kid, and everything above that would come out of the state budget. Because every city and town is facing it. It isn't just Raleigh or Triton. It's all over the state. The state doesn't kick in any extra money until you're spending $70,000 or $80,000. By then it's too late. But I mean, special ed is one of those areas that's hugely expensive. It's growing by leaps and bounds. And, you know, Triton's facing it as well as everybody else is. But I mean, I don't have an answer. I don't think any of us have an answer as to how to handle the school
It
budget.
should come out of education anyway. If someone's severely disabled, it should come out of another account, health, welfare insurance or something, education.
Well, the thing is, Peter, it shouldn't be at one town because 3 families move in with some
Yeah.
severe special needs. Why should that town have to suffer out of the blue when
Well,
it's just like health insurance? If you have a large pool on a statewide basis, everybody hurts a little bit, nobody gets killed. Right now, it varies so much with each town because you have kids move in, you have kids move out, and you know, and they're mandated costs. We don't have any choice in special ed if
Well, I
if
think
the
there's some,
education plans are there and we don't have the teachers in the system, the kids get sent out. So I'm not knocking those issues, but it's just part of the problem that needs to be addressed at the state level. And the state just wants to kind of look the other way and throw a pittance out there. And it just doesn't, any state aid we get every year doesn't begin to correct the problem.
Well, that state aid is like, again, it's 22% now versus 35%. That, you figure 13% of roughly $43 million Triton budget, that's about $6 million. If we were getting $6 million more from the state in state aid, we wouldn't have this issue at all.
you have to be
You'd have a
careful.
surplus.
You have to be careful, Paul, because the way the document, the budget document presents that information is misleading, because you have to factor in that early on, those percentages were based upon the population. And as the population has actually fallen dramatically from 3,400 down to, depending upon which number you look at, 2,500, then that translates into that percentage. So there are other ways of presenting exactly the same information, which makes that picture, it doesn't make the state quite as bad a player, an actor, as that chart is currently presents. So, but again, I think all these are genuine discussion points, and they can all be discussed, but we're discussing them amongst ourselves, and the people who should be involved in the discussion are the school.
They're not here.
Right.
Yeah, yes, not only the school, but then we should be talking to the other towns, and then each town should be essentially raising their own issues with the school committee. At the moment, the communications meeting, which ostensibly was designed to help give a voice to the communities, it's too little, too late, and the wrong venue.
You know, Bernie, I really do think that things are gonna, maybe I'm stupid, but I think things are gonna change. I mean, because I think they've heard it now enough number of times, and they realize, because people are speaking up, you know, people who are going on the internet and talking about this stuff now and things, so people are becoming more aware of what's going on too, so I
Right, but
just put it-
before you get to that point of synthesis and people agreeing, the first actions, and if you watch the internet, what's happened is
Mhm.
people are polarizing.
Right, but that's part of the problem is because I don't know how I can frame it, other than the fact is that, you know, if you see someone that's down in the street and they're suffering, they get punched in the face, and somebody else has the resources to help the person, in this case it's us, I think anybody who been, because ultimately you're hurting the kids, the school system.
Yeah, but it's not.
But you have to put it up front,
But
it
you're
has to
not-
be, everybody has to be together from the beginning. All the towns have to be together, and they have to put the metal to the fire, and they have to save from the beginning. They have to meet early, like yours suggested. There has to be a change in the way things are done.
Right, so
Part of the
and,
problem, we met back in, this town, Raleigh went to the school committee in September to present what we had available for money. Newbury didn't say anything, Salisbury didn't say anything. We did not hear from Salisbury the last meeting I went to, I might have the month wrong, but it might have been the April meeting. We were still, every month, telling them what we had being ignored. At that particular meeting that I went to, and I don't remember, Larry was there, I don't remember which month it was for sure, but we were down to what can the towns afford? Rowley said 200,000, Newbury said 300,000. Salisbury, the town manager was there, and he said, well, we haven't worked on our budget yet, we're not sure what we can afford. So you're talking about April, or could have been March, but late in the budget period, when Salisbury did not even know what they, or did not, at least they didn't share with anybody, what they might have had to put towards the school budget. So, I mean, that needs to change, and Salisbury's in a lot more difficulty than anybody else this year, so maybe with them getting hit in the neck this year, and either having another override or having some severe budget cuts, apparently, only from what I read in the newspaper, that they'll jump on board in September and stick with us. Newbury has been beneficial the last 2 years, not this year. They got an increase. The last 2 years, Newbury actually had a reduction in the Triton budget each year because of the state formula, the way that worked out. This year, everybody was pretty much the same. But there's so many variables. And the three towns, I'll admit with Peter that the three towns don't get together until March or April when it's too late. We all have to get together in September and come in with what money can be afforded and sit down. We did it a number of years ago. We sat down, when I was a chair 10 years ago, I met with Newbury and Salisbury, and we all went to a school, all three towns went to the school committee in the fall and told them what we had. But in those days, and Debbie knows, she's been here a long time, that the superintendents at that time would come to the towns during the winter and say, well, you know, what have you got for money? What can you afford? But those discussions are non-existent now. Nobody cares about us anymore. At one time, we were part of the discussions, and the superintendents would bend over backwards to. They'd take the town that had the biggest trouble, sometimes it was us, sometimes it was Salisbury, sometimes it was Newbury, and try to fit the budget in. The last superintendent,
You talking about Sandra Hillary?
it'd be Sandy, and before that, Gary Murphy. And then when Superintendent Farmer, Dr. Farmer came in, all of a sudden the communications between the school committee and the town just evaporated. And we were just presented, here's your bill, basically, is the way it went. And that's the way the attitude is up there now. You go up there, you talk to them, you make your presentation. And I give Narissa a lot of credit. She comes down to the selectmen's meetings, for instance, and, you know, she gets hammered. But, you know, she's doing the best she can to do her job. But, I mean, hopefully this next year, we got to get through this year. And then next year, Salisbury and Newbury have to realize that we all take our turn in the barrel in terms of how much money is available. But the school budgets right now are increasing at such a rate. If you go back and look at the last 10 school budgets, the number, up until about 5 years ago, the number was within what we had available to give them. Then all of a sudden, it started, you know, 300,000 above, 400,000, 500. I mean, this year would have been, if their original budget was 10% raise over. I mean, now it's down to, 5.5 or something because they cut. But I mean, how do we afford it? You know, the school committee will sit there and tell you, well, we have to give we have to vote for the money that give the kids the best education. And my attitude is, yeah, you do, but you have to do it within what money is available, because if we don't have the money to pay the bill, then what good is it? You know, we're all stuck with. I mean, the police department would love to hire 5 more guys. The fire department would love to hire 10 guys. Pat Snow's always telling us he needs 3 more guys for the highway department. We can't do it. Library would like to open an extra 10, 15, 20 hours a week. No, we can't do it. School committee, yep, what do you need? Okay, you got it. I mean, that's the difference. We have to put all our departments together when the town administrator and others get working on the budget, along with Larry and you guys. You know, you put all the budgets, all the various budgets in a pile and figure out what you got for money and then how you're going to divide it up. The school department doesn't do that. They take last year's budget and see what they need to add for this year. And it's not a good way to budget. But the problem now is becoming acute because every single year, and looking ahead, we're going to have this problem until some major funding changes, whether it's a huge input of state money and the feds are already cutting everything back, so the state's going to cut back. You know, they're all at the upper levels. Everybody's cutting, and we're going to get we get hammered because we're the ones that have to come up with a bill. And we fight amongst ourselves, so, you know, like I say, I'm hoping that from a selectman's perspective, that you pass what the selectmen voted for this town meeting, and then we start talking about what we're gonna do for next year. This year is too late. It is what it is. Who knows what Salisbury will do, but if Rowley passes it, it's gonna go into effect. If Rowley doesn't pass it, then the state's gonna come in and tell us what we're gonna spend anyway, and there's no bargain there, believe me. I hold no hope that the state's gonna come in and the Commission of Education is gonna feel sorry for poor little Rowley. They're not gonna do that. They could care less. They're gonna support the school for whatever it takes. So I'm hoping that you'll vote the budget as it's been presented there, and then we move on and deal with it in the next fiscal year for when we start talking budgets again at the end of the summer.
Is there any way, Dave, that the three boards of selectmen from the three towns can get together in September with Brian, the superintendent, and start, bringing him in and each of the towns together making the case for the coming year? I know they have contractual agreements, but whatever issues there are that could possibly
Well, the last couple of years, I
head
know
off problems.
the select chairs from each of the three towns have gotten together to discuss the school budget. I mean, it's hard to get all three towns. They got to post public meetings and all the rest of it. They meet and talk with the school committee members, and they talk with the superintendent. And like I say, I've been up there every meeting since September, and it's like basically talking to the wall. They listen. I'm not sure they hear.
Yeah, I don't mean like a 3-minute, I mean,
No, but I mean,
basically
yeah,
the
I
school committee.
The letters that you sent.
I mean,
Right.
the other thing is, we're not there to tell them to hire 2 kindergarten teachers instead of 3. I don't see that that's not our job. Our job is to figure out what's the bottom line. How they divide that money up within the school system is their job. And somehow, I don't have an answer. I don't pretend to have an answer, but we're lucky this year. We're able to cover it, and let's
I was
cover
attending
it.
the Triton Finance Committee meetings and flat out told them, I think it was back in January or February, you got to start meeting with the towns and discuss the budget. See what the towns can afford. Just fell on deaf ears.
It used to be, and like I said, I can remember sitting here when I was chair of the selectmen a few years back, that, the business manager and the superintendent would come down and meet with the town administrator, and it was usually the chairman of the board of selectmen. A lot of times it was Jack Demento was on the finance committee then, and we'd all meet informally during the daytime and kick around what the needs were, and then they'd go do the same thing. They go to Newbury and they go to Salisbury, and then they'd come up with a budget that was, and that worked fine up until, like I say, if you go back and look at the budgets, I had them going back about 10 years, till about 2013, 2014 was when all of a sudden that the amount we could afford was going up, and we were starting to take money out of free cash, and we all understand that there might be some extra money every year above that $200,000. I understand that. We all run into problems, but it can't be $400,000, $500,000, and $600,000 above that number. We just, like I say, it's up until a couple of years ago, we didn't have a lot of free cash.
You have to take it serious.
People bought a lot of new cars, and this year we had a lot of building inspector fees and things like that. That's given us much more than we were shocked when we saw how much free. But we need to make sure we have a pool of that money to carry over into next year's budget, because we're already anticipating that there's going to be some major problems next year. I mean, you take our town budget. We didn't buy any vehicles this year. We didn't really buy any pieces of big capital equipment. Nobody really needed it because we had caught up. But starting next year, I already talked to the highway surveyor. He's going to be looking for a truck and another piece of equipment. And every 2 or 3 years, the police department, we budget a cruiser every year, but every 3 or 4 years they have to buy another one because it's not an even number. And you got building issues. The libraries, they're always looking. Air conditioning costs, and we got boilers here at the town hall that need to be replaced. And you got these capital costs. That used to be what we used free cash for, was for capital costs. Because if you had it, you spent it. If you didn't, you made everything go for an extra year. And, like you said about the buildings, we get the new buildings online. Well, hopefully they're going to be coming, more efficient and all that. But I have yet to see somebody put up a new building that didn't cost more money to heat, and just because it's the sheer size. I mean, it's just... we're fortunate, the police station is a lot bigger than, but we had that old building, the trailers, which was the poorly insulated, and the air conditioning costs were high, electric heat and those. So hopefully, that building will kind of pay for itself. The fire department is a different, that's a huge building up there compared to what we've got over here, and so I think they're gonna probably need more money. But, you know, these are the kind of costs that we have to look at, that we understand we know they're coming. We have to kind of set aside, at least in our minds, the kind of money that we're gonna need to do that. But then when the school budget pops in with a $800,000 increase on top of everything else, we get hit. It hurts.
So it seems to me as though the towns have to coordinate certain things. There's certain things they can't really coordinate, which is, you know, we don't expect to kind of coordinate the actual amount of money that Salisbury or Newbury can put on the table. That just doesn't make a great deal of sense. What can be coordinated, though, is a timetable for the discussions on the budget, whereby bilateral discussions will take place between the towns and the school committee. But everybody, the three towns have to agree that that's the kind of process that needs to be put in place, and that process needs to have a timetable attached to it, so that it's in a timely fashion. Timely both in terms of the school being in a position to estimate what its ongoing costs and budget revenues might be, and for the towns so that they have a sense of where things are going as well. So that argues for front-end loading this process. Like October, like starting as soon as they've got, as I said, as soon as they've got the census. But before that, it's required, it needs to happen. What needs to happen is that the towns get together to say, we want to talk to the schools in late September, early October.
But as long as they continue to ignore the pleas of the town, the letters that we sent, the discussions that have been had, unless they change their attitude, you're wasting your time. Because they're just they're gonna ignore you again. Their attitude has to change to be cooperative with the towns so that you can get a positive result. I don't see that happening this year. I didn't see it happen in the last few years.
Right, so
And until
now-
that attitude changes, we're just wasting our time. We're gonna go there, we're gonna talk about things, and it's gonna be, here's the bill. And that's it. And that's it. That's the bottom line.
Well, I would change, I would.
This year, at least they heard,
go there.
people voted down, 2 towns voted it down, and to me, I think they should go back to the voters and let them vote it down again, and we'll just take whatever the state says, which is probably not the right thing to do, but you gotta send a message to them, and even with the 2 towns that voted it down, they still didn't come back to their Plan B budget, they still pumped in numbers in there higher than what they proposed. So they're just not listening
That's because
to us. It's going in one ear and out the other.
That's because Salisbury
And we're
said
wasting
they
our
can
time.
put in like up to $800,000. So once they heard that, they said, okay, now we're gonna build our budget. We know
Yeah,
what our
Salisbury-
parameters
They
are.
did
Well,
that on
so-
override, though. That wasn't money they had available, that was an override.
But,
Override, yeah.
but,
Well, I mean, we all put the override money in, but I mean, when the idea was if the townspeople wanted to increase their taxes, the 3 towns, they would vote the override. That solves everybody's problem.
Yeah.
Obviously, 2 out of the 3
The attitude has
towns
to
didn't
change
do
on
that.
the other side.
the other problem, Dave, that
But I think
I see with the people in town that they've been going, and it may affect town meeting, is that the paper said the selectmen have approved the Triton budget. So they're sitting home and they're going, why do we have to vote? The selectmen have approved it.
No, the selectmen don't approve.
I know,
The
but
selectmen don't-
I know that.
The selectmen don't spend a
The way it
dime.
was
I-
worded.
But the
town
way it
meeting
was
is where the
worded
money-
in the paper, and
Well,
I have been explaining it to people all over town,
We don't control what the paper
but
writes.
that's gonna be a problem. I'm just letting you know.
I mean, I see all the time the selectmen are getting blamed for everything under the sun, but
Yeah.
all we do is
We're
make a
blamed too,
recommendation
yeah.
to you people, or we tell the department heads what we need.
Yep.
They come in and tell us what they need, and we reach a compromise at the selectmen's level of what we're gonna recommend goes to the finance committee. The finance committee then puts it all together, and you guys do a good job every year, and you guys, I tell people, watch the finance committee. They go through,
We go through them all.
you guys go through every one of those budgets, almost every line. And if it's not justified, then you question it or whatever.
Get the reason for it.
But then we get, and so we come in with a balanced budget, but if the school committee comes in with a 6% increase,
Then
we're
we're
stuck. I mean, what I would, hopefully this year, and is what's gonna happen is Salisbury's gonna have to, after we have our town meeting Monday, Salisbury's gonna have to make a decision whether they're gonna have another override, or they're gonna cut major amounts of money out of their budget. Because according to the town manager, that the last night we were there, they only had $200,000 in free cash, and they got to increase their budget by $600,000. So they're going to be hurting big time. So maybe that will give them the impetus next year to come in with us in September. And as far as I'm concerned, you need to have the chairman of the selectmen, the town administrator, or the town, whoever the town uses administrative-wise, chairman of the finance committee in each town. So you don't have it's not a televised public meeting, it's a business meeting between that group of people and the school committee chair and the superintendent. And maybe they'd bring the business manager, because that's the person that knows the money. That's the discussion you need to have in September. And let them all know what the situation is, and Salisbury is the key to this thing right now. Because what they do and what they come up with, I mean, they're going to get, if we approve our budget, they're going to get stuck with the bill no matter what. And it's happened to us in the past. I mean, every town has had an issue, but Salisbury is the one this year that has it. But like I say, they didn't even tell us what they had for money until March or April. So, they were keeping it very close to the vest. Well, we can't do that. We need to let the school know, as we're all, I think, in agreement, that in September, October, we have a pretty good idea. I mean, we know we're going to have a 2.5% increase in new growth. New growth is, we never know for sure, but, we know it's going to be, we can give them, between the two items, 250,000, whatever it ends up being.
The problem is the teacher's contract has already been approved.
Well, I know, but I mean, that's for the school, but that's the school's problem. If they're going to give big raises, then they've got to cut the budget somewhere else.
Another thing,
This is what it boils down to.
Yeah, but that's why
next year is the third year of the contract, so they're going to be negotiating another contract next year. That's why the three towns have to get together.
And go there
That's-
and forget, what happened now, but. And I think Brian knows that, because I think I've spoken to him a number of times.
But it's the next
He-
contract, the
I
three
think
towns
he-
have to get together and,
I think-
work.
I mean, we had years when we cut our budget 2.5%. We had to cut everybody's budget in order to balance the budget. We got to do it. We had years when the contracted raises, all the administrative employees and non-union employees got level funded in a raise. I mean, sometimes that's what you got to do.
I can't write off the next 2 years.
No.
And saying, well, we hope by then the Triton and the school teachers will have come to their senses and come up with something. That's just
I think there are
unacceptable.
proof points before that. I mean, there are proof points, first of all, in establishing the kind of discussion you guys were just talking about between the towns first, before you bring in the other players. I think that would be
Another
the
thing
smart-
too is that if you have two towns, hopefully three, but if you have two towns that can come up with a preliminary budget, you've basically set the overall budget for Triton and the assessments.
Right. I mean,
Okay,
there's a lot of-
you can in that September, October timeframe say, look, Triton, here's what, we've met together, and this is what, we can afford for the budget.
Right.
Well, hopefully, Larry, that the school committee got the point that the override was turned down by 2 out of the 3 towns. So that if they think they're going to come back next year with a override of $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 in each town, I would think that the voters are going to say, hey, wait a minute, no. I mean, I think this might be the year that it turns
The voters
around.
can say no, okay, and the school committee
Well,
says,
We'll still have,
don't care.
we'll still have to
That's
fund
what they
it.
did.
No, we'll still have to fund it. I understand that, but that's what you're dealing with. The problem we're having is the school board, the school committee is under no mandate to control their spending. We have a mandate, Prop 2.5. They don't, and that's And that's state law. I mean, we don't have any control
Right,
over that.
but there's all kinds of moral suasion.
Well, that's what we need to do, and what we've done in the past was we prevailed upon them, and they worked with us. So everybody got a little bit, and everybody got hurt a little bit or whatever, and, but it generally worked out. It was a gentleman's agreement, more or less. Gentlewoman's agreement, but.
There is another, to Larry's point about not waiting, there is another proof point in the process, and that is that this year, they will start the negotiations over the benefits, over the insurance. And that's, I believe, incumbent on the towns to insert themselves into that process more actively than in the past. And again, this is kind of like a kabuki theater in the sense of everybody at the moment is positioning, or in Peter's not particularly felicitous term, posturing. But we need to be, I think the three towns and Rowley needs to be more aggressive in forcing the steps so that these issues come up as early as possible. I mean, I take the point that their behavior up to this point hasn't changed and it's the same old, but nobody gets to see that until it's essentially, we're at the 11th hour. And I think you kind of pull that forward, you make it, make the alignment or alliance with the other, with Salisbury or Newbury or whoever, and early on, and kind of.
We should put in writing though a document that says if you give cost of livings that, above 1.5 or whatever that number is, that is gonna put you over the 2.5, then they have that as a document, the school committee has that, then they can act accordingly. That's something that we have to do, something like that.
Well, but
for,
Pentucket, for example, because that's a good counter-example, Pentucket has no cost of living increase. They've managed their compensation process so that it's 2.5% all the way around. The maximum that a teacher can get is 2.5%.
So they have steps.
They have steps.
So the steps are
2.5%.
Because
The steps are 2.5%.
Are like 5% or something.
Sorry?
I think the steps are 5%.
Not in Pentucket.
In Triton, I'm saying.
Yeah,
not in,
that's correct.
Pentucket,
So we're stuck with this next year's contract. Although we're only stuck in the so far as the people aren't prepared to bite the bullet and force the issue.
Mm-hmm.
But let's assume that they're stuck. The issue then is what's happening going forward. The first thing going forward is going to be this benefits package. And if that benefits package doesn't kind of come back to earth, so to speak, and be realistic and essentially mitigate the damage that the contract is going to do, then I think there should be kind of significant political consequences for the school committee.
Well, that's at the town level. We're under 2.5. We have steps, there's 5 steps, 1.25% between steps. And then the last number of years, we've given a 1% cost of living. So all the employees are basically either some longevity or some other things that make a change there, but we basically, the employees for every year for the last 10 years have gotten 2.25% raises. That's it. And we fight like Debbie knows, town administrator knows, and whoever's the chairman of the board of selectmen knows. You sit at that bargaining table, and it's tough. I mean, these are the people we live with and work with, and we're telling them this is all you're going to get for a raise, and that's what you have to do. And I don't get the impression that the school committee is doing that. Not when they're giving out 2.75% raises, and plus the amount of money between steps, and they're not, and all the other benefits they give. I mean, we get hit every year. We only pay 52% of the insurance. Every year the employees want us to pay more, but these are the kind of things that, we sit at that table and bargain with them across the table with each other, and it's angry at times. But that's what you have to do. You have to be tough to do it, and the school committee somehow has got to get the picture that they've got to start toughening up and I mean, $1 million a year in raises just breaks the bank.
But I think it's the way the nature of the contracts, if you don't get, I mean, the town positions don't fluctuate as much because you don't have them starting off, because teachers
Well,
start off
that's
like
their problem, Peter.
like
They need to
$60,000,
deal with that.
55 or 60,000 up to like 85 or 90. But if you talk like the treasurer in Raleigh is going to be making about, not going to start less than like 70 or 74 and then go up to maybe 80. So there's a difference in the amount of the ranges for the positions themselves.
Well, that's
So,
fine, but knowing that they have that issue, they have to deal with that in their budget
right, everything
somehow.
has to be accounted for. I agree.
That's the problem, is if you know your raises are here, we do it at the town level. We know we know next year, we got all our contracts are gonna be 2.25%, so we know the budget's gonna go up. So the rest of our budget needs to go up or go down to fit in with what the raises are. What they're doing is they're putting the raises in, it's already blasting through the budget amount, and then adding other things that they want or need. In some cases, it's needs, but I mean, like I say, you get health insurance and retiree costs. We all have those. We got them at the town level. They got them at the school level. We have to come up with funding for that. I mean, budgeting is not an easy process.
But part of the issues, Guy, I've talked to the people at Pentucket, and I've talked to the assistant superintendent at Amesbury, and the same story comes back, is that ultimately the schools have to decide whether they want raises or positions. That's what it basically comes down to. And that has to be put on the table, and the people involved in the negotiations have to face up to that. That's what you're basically going to have to choose between. Just like, in fact, by default, that's what the town has basically done. We haven't been generous in staffing, but we've kept the staffing level. But the only way that staffing level can be kept is by putting a pretty severe cap on the pay increases. So the same thing has to happen at the schools. Plus this other big elephant in the room, which is the actual teacher-pupil ratios have not moved as you would expect, given the decline in the student enrollment. The staffing levels are the same. You can go back and look at 2003 when there were 3,500 students, and you can look at the numbers of teachers and the number of other staff in the school system, and the students have dropped by 50%. There's no way the staffing has dropped like that.
No, I think the staffing is continuing from like 16 to like 24 on the average for the stuff, which is like, if you go like to schools, I mean, we're entitled to, the people that live in this town are entitled to, they have, relatively small ratios. Look at, towns like Wellesley and Newton and places like that. I mean,
you've got to look at the actual numbers.
I know,
and the actual numbers. So there's two metrics. One is class size, which is from 18 to 24.
Maybe, yeah.
With 5 out of 66 classes have 24, more than 22 students. The rest have below 22 and below. So their class sizes are pedagogically sound. There's not a problem there. Yeah. But the other issue is then you look at the ratio of students to teachers, not class sizes, students to teachers. And that's down around 12. And then you say, oh, well, that's odd. Got this 22, 23 in classes, and you've got a teacher-student ratio of 12. How does that work out? Well, then you have to go look at the contracts and look at what the arrangements are of what the workload is for the teachers.
So you'd have to have classes under 10 to get down to that if you're saying it's 12. If you get 22 and 24
well, I don't
on the
know.
other end.
I haven't looked at each individual. I can only see class sizes in the elementary through grade 6. I don't know what the size of the classes are in grade 7, 8, and above. But something is happening there that allows that teacher-student ratio to be 12. And again, this is the numbers that the school system has given the state. There was what I would regard as hard numbers.
The instructor assistants, and you just talking about teachers now.
Teachers.
Okay, well,
Well, I think we're at a point we're not gonna solve the problem here
No,
tonight.
I
That's why I'm asking,
Brian-
what I'm asking you and asking the voters to do is to support the selectmen's recommendation for the budget. I hope the town meeting will support that, so we can get beyond this, because we have a lot of other issues, and get ready for next year's budget. We have the money, under the scenario that the selectmen presented, to fund the budget. We'll see what Salisbury does. Depending on what happens with them, we'll over the summer, we'll work together to come up with a scenario for how we handle next year. But in the meantime, we need to move on. We're just going around in circles here now. I mean, everybody's got a lot of good points and a lot of good discussion, but
I had just one question, and I know it's kind of a ridiculous question, and I know what the answer's gonna be, but have we got to the point where we may wanna consider leaving the Triton district and becoming our...
Isn't gonna
When you
happen.
think about what the state gives individual towns and, the money to build a new school, I mean, I don't know, long-term,
Number one, Dennis, that all three towns have to agree to let one town out of the contract. If you let one town out, that means you have to build your own high school, middle school,
I understand that.
and then the other towns each have to do that or pay. I mean, we used to send our kids to Ipswich and to Newburyport back in the day, and both of those school systems basically said, "Hey, enough, we can't do it anymore." So I mean, we're in the system we're in. It's not gonna.
School district.
It's realistically not gonna change. All we can do is hope that the state funding formula gets straightened out, and that, we can work together with the school committee to come up with a fair budget process. That's what we're hoping for.
The main
And
reason
if
we
it's
have,
costing $39 million to renovate an elementary school, can you imagine what it would cost to build a middle and high
Look at the
school?
whole thing, what the state would give us and offset, I mean, it might, obviously it's gonna hurt the town for a while, but in the long run, who knows, maybe it's...
And we don't have the land.
Demographics are fate, and the issue may be beyond us, because the way the demographics are working, the middle schools, the 2 grades in the middle school are soon going to be down below 350. Right. So that
The
means
population probably can't support
well,
the middle and high school.
those are some of the issues, and there was talk in the last meeting, the last budget meeting, of a study taking place at Triton to assess the buildings. So that's that may be a
Yeah, we got the handcuffs.
that may
Just
be
to-
a
I was just going to give you a little bit of history of how we became a regional school. In 1955, Ipswich stopped taking Raleigh students. They went to Newburyport, which is where I went. Newburyport decided they could not handle the schools
they couldn't
anymore.
handle you.
And-
That's
Yeah, Raleigh, Newbury, Salisbury, and when I first went over there, West Newbury were all going to Newburyport High. West Newbury left in 1958 to Pentucket. Then those 3 towns were left, and they had nothing to do but form a group, because none of the towns could afford to do it individually.
What about Georgetown?
Georgetown, we
Would've been a logical-
tried with Georgetown. Georgetown said, no way,
Don't want it.
no way. We want to stay our small town school.
Right,
My father was on a committee to try to get Georgetown to regionalize with
I mean,
Raleigh.
when I moved here in early '70s, the town had 3,000 people. You can't.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't
Do
do your
that.
own school system with 3,000. Now we got 6,000, but at the time we had 3,000. There's no way you get enough students to. We had our own elementary.
Yeah.
But when it comes to high school, the numbers of courses and sports and all the other things, you don't have enough kids to field a baseball team or a football team. Or,
Georgetown and Raleigh
Whatever.
used to share the superintendent. And so that's why we thought it would be a really good fit to go that way, but Georgetown said no.
in Georgetown schools, they go sit in the coffee shop in Georgetown, and all they talk about is how expensive the schools are. So it's, every town is having a problem.
Look
School
at
costs right
Ipswich.
now are out of control everywhere, and the state's kind of turning their nose up.
It's $2,000 less than we are. So it's a
Yeah,
different.
so I think it's time we take a vote.
Yeah, let's go back to,
I'll make a
You want-
motion. Oh, okay.
you go ahead and repeat your motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend Article 2.
Okay, so that's
Yes,
a
it's-
positive recommendation. Do I have a second?
A second.
I'm abstaining.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 2 ayes.
Peter?
Aye. I said I seconded it, okay.
That was the second, so it doesn't count.
Yeah.
Okay. 3-1 was recommended.
Who wrote it down?
I did.
Okay.
Go on to Article 3. This is just a rescind.
I'll recommend that we rescind.
Okay. Do I have a second? We have to rescind the article.
Okay.
Make the whole thing work.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on it? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Article 4, see if the town will raise and appropriate $100,000 for OPEB.
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion, do I have
I'll
a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Article 5, rescind the vote on Article 24 of the April 30th meeting.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Going once, going twice.
Just wanted to make sure what it's saying here. Stabilization fund.
We're not putting the money in.
Okay. I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Oh,
Okay. 3-1 passes. So all the articles are recommended. Next on the agenda is confirmed meeting dates.
Mr. Chairman, I was talking with the town accountant, and we were wondering if we could have another meeting in June. I know you're gonna have one in July to clean up, but if there's any other budget transfers and people need to know that they have the money before they can maybe take care of a bill or
Right.
something like that, we could have it either before town meeting on Monday night or have it soon, like after that. So you're gonna have you're going to town meeting anyway, and you don't need to post a meeting for
Right.
town meeting. But if you did have a short meeting and you did post it, while you're all happen to be there Monday night instead of reconvening at another time.
Is everyone gonna be at the town meeting Monday, 18th?
What time is it now? It's
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
So would that mean that we need like a
6:30?
6:30?
6:30.
Yeah, and I'll find out if there's anything coming up.
Could you do that, Peter?
Yeah, I can do 6:30.
Yeah.
And if there's no
Next
need, I
Monday.
should know
Alright.
by Thursday.
Okay.
That'll be the
And then if
19th.
there is anything,
6:30,
we would
18th.
receive the attachments or whatever from Teresa.
Yeah,
You-
it would be a budget transfer if, she was just concerned that there might be a couple of other departments that might need a transfer, but she wasn't sure. She's away right now, and I won't see her till Thursday. But, so if we say June 18th, and then after that, what would be, are you going straight for that July meeting? I think it's July 12th, or are you gonna have
I think that's what
another
we,
one in June, just in case?
I don't see any reason to have another one.
And unless something comes
All
up
right,
that we
I'll
have to
just,
call
if
one.
there's something that comes up, I'll call Larry and then figure out a date. Okay. And if there is nothing, for Monday night, I'll let you know.
Okay.
And then we'll show up for 7 instead of 16.
What do we need in July? The 10th?
July, the second Tuesday in July, I believe.
Is the
No,
10th.
Is the 10th, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's the next, our next
Yeah.
meeting.
You have to meet sometime before the 15th.
Yep.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Have a motion to
I'll
adjourn?
second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.